Okay, so problem number 2. He's homesick and he wants to come home. This is sort of like, well, what client doesn't want to go home, right? But then there's always going to be some who are really dug in and putting the heavy pressure on wanting to leave. And here's where Module 3 really comes into play. And that's why we want to make sure that family members keep moving through the course and finish it as soon as possible. The mother in this case had already completed Module 3 when the client started talking about wanting to come home. And that put her in the position of being prepared when he started in on that. Module 3 is about where we use the stages of change as a tool for measuring the client's progress and making sure that they're building a solid foundation as they go. And one of the most important aspects of this approach is framing it from the perspective of you can't skip stages, and that moving through this too quickly is what creates cracks in the foundation. So let's take a look at video 2 from Module 3, which addresses this specifically and makes the point that most cracks occur in either the contemplation stage or the preparation stage. And again, like with the last video, while you're watching this, what I'd like you to do is picture the family of a client who's been there for about 2 weeks and is starting to say stuff like, okay, this has really got my attention, and I realize that I need to change, but I really don't need to be here. Everybody here is way worse than me. And imagine the difference that having the information in this video can make for that family with regard to how they respond to that. So here we go, video 2 from Module 3. Two important points about using the stages of change model as a tool for helping clients move through the treatment process. First, it provides a realistic perspective of how long the treatment process really takes. That point about the action stage lasting 3 to 6 months, that's a really long time. Especially when there's a tendency for clients to think they're fine a lot sooner than they really are. Sometimes, because they've done well and they've had a good attitude for a couple of weeks, they think they're in the maintenance stage, when the reality might be that they haven't even scratched the surface of the contemplation stage. And so to put this in perspective, you got to remember that that 3 to 6 month period of the action stage doesn't even begin until after the contemplation and preparation stages have been completed. And that could take a couple of months in and of itself. And so that ties into a second important point about the stages of change, and that's you can't skip stages. In just about any case of relapse or failed treatment, you can usually go back and pinpoint where a problem occurred relative to how thorough they were in each of the stages. And the fact is, most problems occur in either the contemplation or the preparation stage. So for example, the number one reason for treatment failure is premature withdrawal from the treatment process. That's quitting before you're done. And there's two common statements family members will sometimes hear that are big red flags that this is coming. Say you've got a kid who's been through residential treatment, and she's home now and she's in IOP treatment, and she's starting to get a little tired of all these rules that she's having to follow, and there's a little squabble here about something she wants to do, then there's another fight over there about not following her home contract. Then all of a sudden one day she blows up and she says, I've had it with all this. I never even believed I had a problem to begin with. Now some family members at hearing something like that might get freaked out and start thinking, oh no, treatment's been a waste of time and it's all gone down the drain. But as an educated consumer who understands how this stages of change model works, you're going to know that the correct response would be, what? You don't believe you have a problem? Oh, I'm sorry, you obviously have some more contemplation work to do, and I guess we need to revise your treatment plan. Or the second thing you might hear him say is, I'm tired of all this treatment. I don't need this anymore. I'm doing fine. And in that case, you just say, oh, I'm sorry, you evidently didn't get that part of the plan about how long this is going to take, and you obviously have some more preparation work to do. And you revise the treatment plan accordingly. So one of the things we want to be careful of is not rushing them through the process too quickly by assuming that they're further along than they really are. Because the reality is, it's not that hard to get a client in treatment to the point of saying, yeah, my drug use is a problem, and they'll agree to go to a few AA meetings when they get out of treatment. But here's where the quality of the foundation comes into play. Because what ends up happening a lot of the time is a client will get out of treatment and the family and counselors have to start arguing with them about going to their meetings, or they don't want to go to IOP, or they're still hanging out with some using friends, and we end up in power struggles because they're not following through with the plan. We're expecting them to be in the action stage, but if they just skimmed over their preparation work, they may have agreed to a plan without paying a heck of a lot of attention to what that plan really entailed. Or if their contemplation work wasn't solid, they may not even believe that they really have a problem. And if someone doesn't believe that their drug use is really a problem, there's no reason to follow a plan, and we're banging our head against the wall, because we're operating under the assumption that they're further along than they really are. Not that there's anything wrong with them being where they are, we just want to make sure we're focusing on the right part of the treatment, even if you have to carry this over into the next level of care. It's not uncommon these days for clients to get moved out of residential treatment and still have more work to do in the contemplation or preparation stages. And that's okay. What's important is that we stay on top of where they really are in their process and keep working on that until we know that they're solid. That's the key to building a foundation that's ultimately going to support long-term recovery. So you can see how this video drives home the point that treatment's usually got to last longer than most people think, and that it's really common for clients to think that they're further along than they really are when they start talking about wanting to leave. But my experience is that when family members get this material on the stages of change for the first time, it makes a lot of sense to them, and it validates or confirms something that they already know on some level, but they're just not quite able to articulate it when the issue's being pressed. But the mother in this case, having already gone through Module 3, knew immediately when the client started talking about leaving that he wasn't anywhere ready to go. She was rock solid in her response because the material validated something that she may have already sort of known in her gut, but as she said in her text, she may have caved if she hadn't had all this information that reinforced that gut feeling about whether he was ready to leave or not. And so again, from the perspective of length of stay, this stages of change model is really effective in ratcheting up the family support for clients staying longer, whether that's avoiding the ASA discharge early in treatment, or even in the case of the client making a decision to extend after an already decent length of stay.